Hey guys, welcome back to the channel helping you earn more, spend less, and invest the difference. My name is Ben, and today we're going to be talking about the 50-30-20 budget rule proposed by Elizabeth Warren. Now, some of you guys may have heard the name Elizabeth Warren. If that name rings a bell, she is a prominent Democratic senator from the state of Massachusetts. But besides being a senator, she also taught at Harvard. She taught personal finance for middle-class families. Like, no joke, that's what she taught at Harvard. So let's take a look at her proposed budget ideas, her 50-30-20 rule, and see if I agree with them or not. All right, so the first thing that we need to do with this particular budget is we need to calculate your after-tax income. This is going to be after you take out things like your federal taxes, state taxes, Social Security tax. Once you take out all of those taxes, what are you able to actually take home with you at the end of every month? That's the magic number that we're going to start with. So once you have that magic number calculated, the 50-30-20 rule essentially says that 50% of your take-home pay should be dedicated to your needs. These are going to be the fundamental building blocks that you just need in order to survive. So this is going to be things like food, transportation, shelter, insurance, child support payments if you got them. All those fundamental things that you just cannot go without in life. That is going to be in your needs category, and theoretically you should spend 50% of your money on those needs. And then next up, 30% of that magic number should be dedicated towards your wants. These are the niceties that make life enjoyable. So these are going to be things like streaming services like the NFL Sunday Package, gym memberships, eating out, entertainment, travel. All that good stuff is going to be lumped into this broad category of wants. And under the 50-30-20 rule, you should dedicate roughly 30% of your take-home pay towards these wants. And then the remaining 20% of your money should go towards savings or debt repayment. Now, one thing that I have to say about this 50-30-20 rule as far as the debt repayment, any sort of minimum monthly payments that you just have to make, that's going to be in your needs category, all right? So that's going to include the minimum payment on your car, the minimum payment on your mortgage, the minimum payment on your credit cards. Those minimum payments are in the needs category because you have got to pay that stuff. Any additional money that you pay on top of those minimums, that is going to come out of your savings, this 20% that's going to be dedicated towards savings/debt repayment. Now, my initial thought process on this whole 50-30-20 rule, at first glance, I'm a little bit surprised that they start off with 20% at savings and 30% at wants. Personally, I would swap those two numbers, 30% for savings and 20% for wants, especially if you're young and just starting off with a career. I'm a big fan of building that savings, that nest egg, as rapidly as you can. That way, in a worst case situation, if something does happen to you, you have something to fall back on. So I would personally want to bump that savings rate up a little bit. But whatever, let's take a hypothetical look and let's just assume that you make roughly $100,000 a year, and that would mean that after you take out your taxes, you're probably making about $72,000 a year once you pay your taxes, and that comes out to $6,000 a month of actual take-home pay. So under this 50-30-20 rule, your 50% of that $6,000 should go towards your needs. So that would mean you essentially have $3,000 a month to spend on things like your mortgage and basic food and all that kind of stuff. Now, if you're making $100,000 a year, $3,000 a month for your needs sounds relatively reasonable. You're probably going to want to buy a decent house, so you're going to have some mortgage payments, you might have a nice car, so you're going to have car payments and all that kind of stuff. So $3,000 a month sounds relatively reasonable for the needs category. And then the wants category, if you assume the standard 30% for your wants, that would mean you'd have $1,800 a month for your wants, and then $1,200 a month for savings and debt repayment for that 20%. Now, when I'm thinking about $1,800 a month, if I was making $100,000, $1,800 a month for wants seems pretty high to me. I mean, even after you account for, some of the smaller things like eating out and going to shows and that kind of stuff, like in order to consistently spend $1,800 a month on wants, you would have to be buying some pretty nice clothes and pretty nice jewelry and taking some relatively expensive vacations and taking those vacations often. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with all of that stuff. But I think if you allocate $1,800 a month for those kind of activities, then I think lifestyle creep can kick in pretty fast. And I think it just sort of advocates some unnecessary spending. Especially when you consider you're only saving $1,200 a month at that point. I mean, when we stop and think about it, if you're supposed to have an emergency fund built up somewhere between 3 and 6 months of your income, then if you're only saving $1,200 a month, it's going to take you between 15 months and 30 months just to build up a 3 to 6 month nest egg for an emergency fund. That seems like it's going to take a fair while. And if you get used to spending this $1,800 a month for just frivolous wants, then if for whatever reason you do get laid off or whatever and you have to downsize, it's going to be really hard to go backwards with that lifestyle creep and go back to, actually grocery shopping and eating at the house instead of all of this fancy, extravagant stuff that you were used to. But I mean, all right, whatever. We'll give this 50-30-20 rule a passing grade if you're making $100,000 a year. Now, Senator Elizabeth Warren is worth an estimated $10 million, and she's a teacher at Harvard. I don't know exactly what kind of people she's hanging out with, but I would assume that all of her friends are sort of on that same socioeconomic scale, some of that upper class people. I don't know how well this works out for true middle class families. Now, there is no formal definition that the government uses to define what is considered middle class and upper middle class and all that kind of stuff. But the Pew Research Center defines middle class as a percentage based on the median household incomes in America. So according to them, middle class means that for a household you earn between $45,800 and then roughly $137,000 a year. That range classifies you as middle class. So I guess our $100,000 income earner, they would be considered middle class. But I don't know about you, but I'm guessing that most of the people that are watching this channel, they're not making 6 figures or more. Instead, let's take a little bit lower of a number and let's assume that your household income for the year is a nice, neat, round $50,000 a year. So if your family made $50,000 a year, then using this tax calculator, once you take out your state taxes and your federal taxes and 7.65% for things like Social Security and Medicaid, your actual take-home pay for the year is going to be $39,800. And then we're going to take that number and divide it by 12 to see how much money we have available each and every month, and that's going to be our magic number that we're going to use for this 50-30-20 rule. So using the 50-30-20 rule and a supposed $50,000 yearly income, that means we would have roughly $1,660 a month to spend on our needs, roughly $1,000 for our wants, and $660 for our savings/debt repayments. So let's start off with the basics. Let's start off with our housing situation. So if your household income is $50,000, then you've probably got a family of some sort. So let's just assume that you need at minimum a 2-bedroom apartment. Now I know that a lot of you guys are going to need more than a 2-bedroom, but that's okay. Let's just start with the basics. The absolute cheapest 2-bedroom apartment that I could find was going for $995 a month. Now that's not going to include things like heat and gas and all of their utilities. So by the time you're all said and done, you're probably going to be paying $1,100 or $1,200 a month for this unit. So let's say hypothetically you're paying $1,200 a month in rent for this 2-bedroom apartment. That only leaves you with about $460 a month for all of your other needs. So car payments, groceries, insurance, like you're gonna run out of money super fast using this 50-30-20 rule. So you basically have no money for your needs. You are not going to be able to cover your basic needs. But if we move on to the wants, at that 30%, we see that we have almost $1,000 a month that we can spend on our wants. So who cares if we can afford basic housing? We can buy new PlayStation 5s like every month because we got $1,000 to blow on stuff that we just kind of want. And once again, even though we can't afford basic housing items, we can somehow afford $663 a month for savings/debt repayment. Look guys, if you are making 6 figures plus, then this 50-30-20 rule might make sense for you, but most people, especially on the lower end of the earnings spectrum, this method falls apart very rapidly because you're going to need to devote significantly more money towards your actual needs. Now, if you found this video useful, be sure to subscribe, leave a comment down below, give it a thumbs up for the YouTube algorithm, and as always, I'll see you all again next time. Thanks.